Welcome to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. I'm your host, Ariane Aramburo. Today's guest is Desiree Scott, the Program Director of Family Services at Volunteers of America, Alaska. Desiree has extensive experience working with diverse groups of families, providing a variety of support services. Her vision is to expand the Kinship Program through new and sustainable community partnerships with the goal to provide resources to communities throughout Alaska. During her free time, she enjoys spending time with family and exploring new places. Who doesn't? Please welcome to the podcast, Desiree Scott. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Y'all settled in? You're all good?
Yes, thank you.
So before we get into kind of everything about what VOA Alaska is, tell us a little bit more about yourself, your tie to Alaska.
Yeah, so I was born and raised here in Anchorage. Once I turned about 18, I joined the Air Force. Did that for quite a bit, and then went to school, and then I had my daughter, and then we moved back just because wanted to raise her around family, raise her in the mountains. She is a mountain hiking girly.
Is she?
Oh, yeah. Since then, I've had another baby boy and having another, so being around family is going to be great.
Oh, I love that. Well, gotta love the kiddos, and of course, Alaska just pulls you back somehow.
Somehow, I'm like, we can go. I need to get away, and then I'm always come right back.
So, Volunteers of America, Alaska. Tell me a little bit about that, and how did you come to be a part of that organization?
Yeah, so Volunteers of America, Alaska, we are a nonprofit behavioral health substance use center for youth, ages all the way from school age up to about 24. I actually came across the Kinship Program when I was moving back here. At the time, I had just went through the whole process to try to actually adopt a relative caregiver in California, saw how many barriers there truly are to that process. And so I think the timing really just aligned perfectly for me, and where I had such a huge interest in kinship, and then just seeing how many families there are that are really affected by being raised by different caregivers. Yeah.
Which kinship caregivers you guys wrote here? That could be a grandparent, uncle, cousin. Talk a little bit about who that can be.
Kinship caregivers, any relative caregiver that's raising a child. And so in Alaska, for VOA Alaska, we see primarily grandparents that are raising their grandchildren, but we see a lot of nieces, nephews, cousins, older siblings that are now raising their younger siblings due to a variety of reasons. Yeah.
What is the difference between kinship care, a kinship caregiver, and then foster care? Because we've had someone to talk about foster care. So what's the difference on those?
Yeah, so you can be a kinship caregiver and also a foster care or a foster parent as well.
Okay.
It really just depends on your licensing, the licensing portion of it. For our kinship program, you don't have to be a kinship, or you don't have to be a foster parent to be enrolled in our services. So we serve families that have just untraditional placements. So where the state of Alaska, OCS, is not involved. So that's as if my mom were to just care for my daughter, for example.
Okay.
And OCS isn't involved. The child was never formally removed from the home. And then we have about 50% of our families also who are those traditional foster parents who went through the entire licensing process as well. I would say there's pros and cons for both of those. Yeah.
Talk about, sometimes that could be, without little preparation or notice for kinship care. It could be in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
You can have somebody be placed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We see that pretty often, or parents, grandparents, siblings are kind of left with these children sometimes, and then families may not return. So we see a lot of the times some legal challenges with them. Just getting guardianship over these kids sometimes is that's probably one of the number one barriers that we see, is just having guardianship or power of attorney over these youth, because I would say the number one reason of kinship care that I have seen has been due to biological parent parental substance use.
Okay.
So there is very little preparation for most of those families.
The program, aside from having the Kinship Care Program and people can be caregivers, what else does the program provide for you guys?
We provide a ton. We really focus and we exist to really support the caregiver. Our goal is so that our families, these kids, don't go into traditional foster care where they're going into a foster home where they don't know anybody.
Right.
A lot of the times these kids come in larger numbers, so if they go into traditional foster care, then they may have to be separated.
Okay.
So the goal is to get the relative caregiver the support that they need in order to continue to provide that care for the kids. So we provide a lot of case management, navigation of resources. That's probably the number one service that we provide right now. And that can be anything from navigating how to get these kids enrolled into school, into like public assistance applications, anything like that. We also provide some minor financial assistance, just depending on the needs of the family. A lot of the times we get requests for, of course, groceries, gas, stuff like
Some
that.
financial assistance.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Financial assistance is a big one, mainly because a lot of our families, especially our grandparents, are on fixed incomes, and then suddenly they have 3-4 kids in their home, and they were planning on retiring.
Yeah, they're like, what are y'all doing here?
Yeah.
But, you know, they step up to the plate.
Exactly.
Do you see that a lot with this community? I know Anchorage is kind of a small, big town. We're isolated, so to speak. You know, how does that kind of compare to the lower 48, what you see in kind of these programs?
We see a lot of, I think a good cultural piece in Alaska is that it is almost a norm sometimes. I don't know how many families you work with, but to have multiple generations in a home, or families, especially our tribal families, that automatically are caring for these grandkids or nieces and nephews. So we see it all the time.
As far as mental health services go, because, you know, that's kind of a big transition, taking kids in or kids being placed somewhere, even if they do know them, you know, or it's a guardian. How do you guys go about that?
Yeah, there's a ton of trauma, honestly, that comes from being removed from your parents' care. You're not just typically removed from the care of your biological parent for no reason. So we do address that as well. We have in our kinship program, on our family services team, we have a mental health clinician that sees primarily kinship families. So the youth being raised by the relative caregiver, and then also the family unit as a whole. However, it's deemed safe and appropriate, then we can see the entire family, including biological parents as well. But we can do individual therapy for anything from just processing that trauma to any depression, anxiety, anger. We see a lot of emotions that are coming out of these children, and then also the caregivers.
That's a big responsibility to take on.
Yeah, and then they're dealing with, a lot of our caregivers are dealing with kind of their own trauma while raising these children as well, and then having to almost grieve their relationship with their relative as well, and now navigating these new roles, like going from a grandparent to back to a parental figure almost. That's a huge one that we see.
It says you guys have a kinship support group that's every other Friday. Is that still going on?
Yes, we do a kinship support group every other Friday. That's both in person or virtually, so that way we can meet the needs of families all around the entire state. That's a relatively new service that we started offering. It's really just there we as staff, we facilitate it. However, it's pretty peer-led. We go based on whatever the needs of our families are at the time, and it's beautiful. It's one of my favorite services that we offer, just because we get to see these families come in and meet one another, and then build these relationships, form these bonds, and then ultimately our goal should be that they don't need us. Right. And so really seeing them lean towards onto one another it's beautiful.
Talk about Camp Hope. This is your guys' annual camp in July. So is this something that's going to be coming up? Because we're taping this, it's what, July 3rd?
Yeah, we're actually starting it next week.
Oh,
I'm so
perfect.
excited.
Perfect.
I love, my passion really is with families and then
Yeah.
with little kids, so about 7, 11 to 11 age range. So our Camp Hope, we host a week-long camp for youth that are either in VOA services, have siblings in VOA services, or are being raised by kinship caregivers. This year, we're doing incoming 3rd through 6th graders.
Okay.
And we're focusing on just social emotional learning and building on all of those skills. And it's an entire day camp, so from 9:30 to 4:30. It's completely free of cost for our families, and we are taking them on a field trip every day.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's fun.
I'm so excited.
Like, who's more excited, the kiddos? Or
Probably
you?
us as staff.
You know, what you guys do and provide, anything you want to say to get the word out? Because for folks that may think of Volunteers of America, Alaska, you think volunteering in that sense, which it is, but it goes a little bit more beyond that. So, you know, where are you guys located? How is the best way that people can connect with you all?
Yeah, we are located in Midtown and Anchorage. Our best way to contact us, we have our a pretty amazing communications team with a great online presence. We have the VOA Alaska website as well. I think if I were to get one thing out, especially about the Kinship Program, is that we are, yes, located in Anchorage, but we operate and we provide services throughout the entire state of Alaska.
Okay, good to know.
And so we just modify our service delivery, how we deliver services for families, for those that are in maybe Ketchikan or Kenai. We are able to operate everywhere and provide the same quality of services. Yeah.
What's been some of your testimonials from families that you've worked with over the years, and some of the feedback from either the Kinship Program, Camp Hope, just the support groups, how this really impacts them?
Yeah, we have gotten some pretty amazing testimonials. It really goes to show that our staff are so passionate about what they're doing, the services that they're providing. We really try to meet the needs of our families and putting our families' needs absolutely first. I would say one of our greatest testimonials is that, especially for those families that have biological children of their own and then are also raising kinship children, is addressing the family unit as an entire whole, like as a whole. And we're not just providing support for the kinship kids. We're also able to provide that same exact support for the biological children in the home, because they're now going through this very similar experiences. Their lives are being adjusted, and not singling out and being able to just support, if that's financially, if it's emotionally, supporting one child or 2 children. We're really able to address the family as a whole unit. And then I think another testimonial for me or maybe not even a testimonial, a success for me, what that really truly looks like, is anytime that we see families that are really going through a hard time, they're in the middle of it, and then just watching them come out of it. And even if they're gaining just one tiny thing, one resource, I always feel like that's good enough for me, especially when we're doing support groups. Sometimes families come and then we as staff put pressure on ourselves, as we all do as professionals, and you're like, want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And what I always try to tell my staff is just, as long as one person gets one thing out of it, then I always feel like that's a success. I've been able to see quite a few relative caregivers legally adopt these their children in their care. And that one's always one that gets me. I don't even work directly with clients sometimes, but anytime they're like, oh, so-and-so has adopted their kids, I'm like, blubber, because it's just, finding that
Yeah.
permanency and that stability for the youth is just so important.
What would be some advice working in this, for someone who is maybe just stepping into this role? Obviously, they're going to get trained and have all these resources that you all provide, but just kind of on the bare basic bones level, if I'm taking in two kiddos, one, because I went through this program, but that's also, you're kind of navigating territory that you haven't been in before. What advice would you give to some of those families or someone coming into this kinship care? How does someone know that this is something that they can do?
Oh, I love
And I guess
that
it's okay if they
question.
can't do it too, for them not to feel guilty if they take kids in and it's
Yeah.
maybe not for them.
Yeah, sometimes it's not. I would say my biggest piece of advice, I haven't thought about this really, but my biggest piece of advice really would just be to offer yourself grace, offer the children grace. As hard as it is, anytime that any of us have to parent, even our own biological
so key.
kids.
Parents speaking to
Yeah.
that word is so key.
You get so caught up in all of the chaos sometimes. And these are children we're talking about. We as adults expect forgiveness. We expect grace, but I feel like oftentimes we forget as adults to offer that the same for our children in our care. So I think that would really be it. And then lean on your community, find community support. I think that again, we all as parents, every parent, we really need that community support, but knowing that you're not alone as well. And that's why I love the support groups, is that they're not alone. We offer childcare during those groups as well.
Okay.
If they're in person. Sorry, I'm backtracking
a tiny bit.
Those are the
ones. Those are the support groups every other Friday.
Yeah.
11 to 12:30 p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
And so we offer childcare, and really that we began offering that to kind of mitigate a barrier. People don't want to come to a support group if they don't have the childcare available.
Right.
But then we also noticed that a lot of the kids that were coming to childcare didn't realize that, there's other kids that are being raised by a grandparent or being raised by an aunt, uncle. So really leaning into the community supports that are available.
What would you say for a family or someone who knows of a family that could use this service? They don't maybe know how to approach to say, hey, maybe something like, or someone like Volunteers of VOA Alaska would step in without maybe stepping on toes. How do you navigate kind of that, like, I feel like something could happen here, but what do I do?
Yeah, we see that a lot of times, because that's hard. It's hard to ask for help.
Yeah.
And so our piece of advice, mine is usually like, just come, or just, if you want to join a support group virtually and you don't have to speak. You could turn your camera off. You could turn your mic off. Really just come to see what we have to offer. Or at a minimum, we can have that just initial conversation to show what we can offer. And you're not signing your life away here by enrolling. So there's
just because you get on Zoom doesn't mean you signed up.
Right. There's no harm in just even having those conversations. You can always stop receiving services if you're not feeling like you're getting much out of it. But most of the time we find that people get, again, that's something, just tiny little bit.
Are you guys in need of staff, volunteers right now in any specific area that people, if they want to get involved with this work?
Yeah, I believe that, so for the Kinship Program, we're actually hiring another mental health clinician. We've grown so much that we've been able to hire one, and we're now hiring another to focus on behavioral health, mental health support for little kids and families specifically. But I believe VOA as a whole is hiring for numerous positions, from BHAs all the way to mental health clinicians as well.
All right, so you can go check out their website.
Yes.
Of course, again, let folks know your website
Ooh.
for them. Or you can just type in VOA Alaska, because this is a national program.
It is voaak.org.
voaak.org. Gotcha. I'm going to throw you off there. She knows her website. Just now, personal for you. You're a mom.
Yes.
And you work with these families, and obviously you have a passion for this. How does that kind of go hand in hand, parallel? What do you, what have you learned about yourself as a parent, maybe just in general or even just in this role that you do?
I've learned so much about myself. My daughter's almost 8, and I started in this role back in 2020, so almost about 4.5, almost 5 years. So she's just a little toddler walking around for when I started. I've learned so much from our families, really. I feel like I learned just as much from them as they do from me. Again, I feel like as parents, especially parents that are in these helping roles of trying to help other people, I've learned just humility.
Yeah.
Really, that's been the biggest thing, is that I truly just humble myself and listen to other people's stories and how I can learn and how I can grow from them, really. And I don't try to offer advice where it's not wanted. Because, we're all we do it all the time.
Yeah.
We go through it and we're kind of just wanting to vent sometimes.
Yeah.
And you don't need advice necessarily. So just humility has been the biggest thing I've learned about myself, really. And then I would also, some of these families and some of the work that we do is really hard. So just learning how to kind of separate it sometimes from work and home.
Does it come home, or is it hard to leave it at work and then come home because you're dealing with families and kids, and you come home to your kids and
you come home to your kids that are the same
home.
age too. No, I think I've gotten a pretty decent self-care routine, really just leaning on coworkers as well, that I'm able to kind of just go talk through it with them. And so that way I am able to compartmentalize, because I feel like that's probably one of the worst things we can do is bring it home to our children, because they didn't do anything.
What I do.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I love all this information. Again, the Kinship Program, which is what is your passion, and anything else you want to mention more about the Kinship Program or Kinship Caregivers that we didn't get to touch on. And I'll also let you have the final word, anything that you want to mention or add, or doesn't even have to be related to that, but I'll let you have the final say.
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I think that these caregivers, I guess my only word would just be my appreciation to all of the kinship caregivers that are out there, even all of the foster parents that are out there. It's not an easy job. It's a seriously tough job. Their own emotions are also wrapped up in it. And I feel like that's where people forget that sometimes, is that these are their children's children sometimes. And so I just want to extend my gratitude really for our kinship caregivers that are out all in Alaska.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Desiree, for coming on and sharing about the program. Thank you all for listening to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you.